We finished that night's session. I drove Leon Russell back to his hotel, and I said, man, that was a drag, darn it. And with his Oklahoma accent, Leon said, you kidding? I'm back to Tulsa in the morning. I got home and called Phil Spector's office and just left a message at midnight. Said, sorry, I can't make it the rest of the week. So I canceled. That wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. It could have been so cool.
How can I introduce this man? Grammy Award-winning solo artist, over 30 albums. He's appeared on hundreds of records. He's worked with Joni Mitchell, Steely Dan, John Lennon, just to name a few. Mr. 335, Larry Carlton.
Glad to be here.
Let's take it right back to the start, Larry.
Okay.
What was for you the beginning of music for you? That first inspiration?
There was a unnamed acoustic guitar at my grandmother's house when I was a child. And my mom could play some chords, C, D, G. She used to sing with her dad at church when she was a teenager. But they told me that even at age 4, I was just fascinated with the guitar. And they said, when you're big enough to hold it, it was a big old unnamed acoustic guitar, strings that high off, you know. And they said, when you're big enough to hold it, you can take lessons. Yeah. So at 6.5 years old, little Larry could hold that big old guitar, and I started taking lessons. And that was the beginning for me of continuing that path for the rest of my life, was starting lessons.
You're obviously such a well-versed artist and such a complete player, but something that you were able to do very early on was express yourself through the instrument. Now, it's one of these things that people can take a lifetime and never really fully master. Was there a moment early on where you realized that you were able to communicate those actual emotions through the instrument, and what was your way of doing that?
I think it's a long journey. Before you can really, really express yourself in any art form, you have to have the tools. So from age 6 to age 16, I've already been playing the guitar 10 years, not expressing myself, but copying, playing little gigs. And in college, at age 18, I never forgot this night. Some of the other students, piano player, John Hobbs, bass player, sax player, Adrian Tapia. We got together on a Friday night at somebody's house to just jam. And we were jamming, and I had my eyes closed on a stool, and I was soloing, and that's the first time I experienced the zone, like a runner's high, where it was me, one with the instrument. I wasn't hearing anything else, and time didn't mean anything. They all eventually dropped out, and I kept playing. And when I finally came out of it, they were just staring at me. And that's the night that I matured to that next level of being one with my instrument totally.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a milestone to experience that. And once I experienced that, that's what you want to achieve.
You want to chase that.
Every time you want to play. So it's important every time I play to try to go to that place where it's just me and the guitar, and somebody may be listening or maybe not.
Have you found the secret to getting back to it? Because obviously anybody who sees you on a live show will feel you live in that zone, but I'm sure for you that's not always the case.
It's not always the case, but there's just an awareness that that's where I'd like to be. Yeah. And I don't know what it was that night, but I don't know how that continued. When I play, I close my eyes. It's just me and the guitar and listening to the accompaniments.
And this was in the middle of an improvisation.
Yeah. We were jamming on some Miles tune or something, and I just went off to that place. So once you taste that, That's what you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you heard yourself recorded?
Yeah, I was 12 years old. My teacher, he would take the students to a recording place, direct to disc, and play together. And I probably played, and I have a recording of it.
Oh, wow.
At home of little Larry playing the boogie woogie.
And what was your initial reaction hearing that back?
Oh, thrilled, I'm sure. As a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think recording yourself as early as that and listening back and having that opportunity, did that help your development as a player move quicker?
No, I think it was just the inspiration of a child.
Okay.
To get to hear yourself or see one of your paintings put up on a wall someplace at school. Yeah. Same kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was cool.
And what was your rig then?
My first electric guitar at 8 years old was a Broadcaster.
Right.
But then...
That'll do.
Yeah, but at 8, you don't realize how cool that guitar really is. It just looked cool to a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the Broadcaster. And then from there, maybe to a Telly with candy apple red finish on it. My parents were very generous as I got better and better every few years. And then I went to a Jazz Master. I think I went to the Jazz Master because I saw a picture of Joe Pass, and he was playing the Jazz Master.
Of course.
But it wasn't his choice. That was the only guitar available for that recording, you know? So yeah, those were the first 3 electrics I had.
And were you trading these guitars in
for
an upgrade?
Of course.
So you got to wonder where that Broadcaster is now. It's in someone's hands somewhere.
Somewhere.
And, they maybe don't know the legacy behind it, you know?
Yeah.
And then obviously the iconic 335. I understand, picked that one up, it was about $800.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hanging on the wall with 2 others at a music store in Palos Verdes, California, that a friend of mine, he worked there.
Sure.
So...
what spoke to you about that particular sound that the 335 had?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I was playing in clubs at a very young age. In 9th grade, I was playing Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon with older musicians where they served food in the club. We were playing pop music.
Sure.
But here's this 14-year-old kid. We celebrated my 15th birthday at the club. One night, a gentleman came in, big, tall guy, and he had a red 335. And I think he played Moonlight in Vermont or something. And I saw that, and I never forgot that guitar. But I went through the ES 175 because of Joe Pass.
Yep.
Played that for a number of years in my high school days. But then I remembered the 335, how versatile it could be. And when I got into starting to break into studio work, I thought, I want to get something that I can play jazz, but also can go a little crank on it and get aggressive. And so I chose the 335.
You obviously felt that the 335 was that all-round, complete
For
sound
me.
for
Yeah.
yourself. Did you know right away that it was like, no, this is going to be my voice on the instrument? And could you have imagined that it would be for so many years? I mean, it basically changed the popularity of that instrument.
It did. I'm honored, by the way, that happened. No, I just knew it was right for me. And then the opportunities to record with it, and those records became so important that my association with the 335 kind of perpetuated my career and the career of that guitar.
What, for you, is really the key to being a great improviser on the instrument?
A lot of different answers come as you ask.
So a lot of people
that.
come and they can play a lot of notes and they can play the parts, but something doesn't, when you're a listener, sometimes it doesn't move you.
Right.
Other players, every note they play just feels like they've got something to say.
Yeah. I guess it's a difficult question. I guess in the formative years, for all of us as players, we emulate what we responded to in another player. So when I heard Joe Pass play Catch Me, I had never heard anybody play the guitar like that. I was touched, but also when I heard John Coltrane's album Ballads, and all he did was play the melody, and I was melting the way he played it. That's my response to that. So that's how I try to play as a young player, is because I want to feel that passion.
You chase the feeling as opposed
Chase
to...
the feeling.
Interesting.
But you still obviously have to put in the time to have the command of your instrument to be able to express yourself that well. But yeah, I was chasing that feeling that I had when I listened to my mentors.
Yeah. It's beautiful to know that so much of it is coming from that. And of course, as you mentioned, a big part of it is already having the vocabulary under your belt. If you're up there sort of thinking too much, you can't really get out of your own way. Was there a moment for you where the fretboard just really opened up in terms of the fret visualization?
I think it was just that slow process that happens over the years of playing every day, having the opportunity to play in bands, some good, some bad, but you still have the instrument in your hand. You're always, I used to sit on the couch with my guitar. I mean, it became part of my body as a kid. But I always like to say that I also played sports. I wasn't just that one focus.
You need the time away from the instrument to come back.
To be a kid.
Yeah,
after school sports, football and basketball, all the things that kids do, but back to the guitar.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my bedroom with records, Barney Kessel, Tony Mottola, Johnny Smith, and, hearing
Working it all out by ear.
By ear. I could read, but this was all by ear, and I just started copying, learning what they were doing. And to this day, 65 years later, I can still play some of the things that I learned in my bedroom at 12 and 14 years old.
And you still keep it fresh, which is the most impressive thing. But one of the things you do to keep it fresh is you have very interesting ways of approaching, say, even something like the blues scale. Where did that approach come for you, where you're actually thinking, you know what, I'm going to actually use an alternative scale over this just to get a little bit of a different sound, and then you will accent unusual
color
points
notes
in the scale, and people would be scared to do that, but you seem to relish in it.
I don't know when there was a moment that happened, but just came from listening to a lot of different players, and not just guitar players, sax players, keyboard players, color notes. I love tight voicings, all those intervals in the center. My ear loves those, so I want to play those. It just became my style. I look back on some live concerts from many years ago, and I could play pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not really, it's what you do with the speed, And I'm a melodic player. I am. And that's because, again, that Coltrane album, all that, where I was so touched. I didn't try to learn giant steps. I appreciated it, but it didn't move me. But the other thing.
So there's a couple of big anniversaries this year. We're looking at 50 years since you first worked with Steely Dan, which is quite unbelievable. And you worked with John Lennon as well, of course, 50 years ago. Just starting a little bit to talk about the Steely Dan stuff, because obviously it's such a big part of your career. Some of these tracks that you've worked on, did you realize at the time they were going to have such an impact almost half a century on?
No. I don't think anyone who just goes into a session and plays the best they can that day, at least I never went in thinking, oh boy, that's going to be great. I just played the best I could those days. And I remember when the Royal Scam came out, and in Billboard magazine there was reviews of new albums.
Yep.
And they reviewed the Royal Scam, and I forget the words they used about my solo on Kid Charlemagne. I didn't even remember it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So
remember what you played?
No.
Wow.
No, because I hadn't heard it since the session.
Incredible.
But it was so flattering what they were saying. Oh my God, we got to listen to this. And we bought the record,
Yeah.
put it on, and this is the God's truth. Played the whole thing, my solo came up, and then the ending came up. And I looked at my partner and I said, it just sounds like me.
Yeah.
You can't plan. It's such a blessing to have the world, to some degree, respond to something you play. You can't plan it, and it's humbling. It really is.
You reunited with the guys of Steely Dan for a few shows back in 2017.
I did.
And then you're revisiting these songs now. Am I right in thinking you hadn't played these parts in like over 30 years?
Exactly.
So how was that then, revisiting those? Was there any shocks?
Yes, but they had their wonderful, wonderful guitarist there, John Harrington.
Okay.
Yeah, he knew all of the parts. So when I got there, if I didn't remember something that was intricate to the tune, I got you covered, man. Just take the solo. Don't worry about it. So I didn't have to do as much homework as you think, but I did have to decide if I was going to learn my Kid Charlemagne solo, note for note, or just play the way I would play Kid Charlemagne 35 years later. And I asked a number of friends, and they just went, Larry, you got to learn the solo. So I learned my own guitar solo, and it was beautiful. We opened the show at Radio City, at the Beacon Theater for 5 nights, and we opened with Kid Charlemagne. And I nailed the solo. I played it right.
Was there any apprehension? Or were you just super confident?
Well, I put the time in at home.
Yeah.
I thought, how did I finger that? What was it? And it was great. The audience recognized the solo. I played it great all 5 nights. So we went on to another city, same thing. We went to LA. I didn't nail the solo. It wasn't right. I don't know if I was a little nervous in LA or what happened. I wasn't hearing right. And so the calendar section of the LA Times Sunday says, Carlton Flubb's famous solo. And it's true, I didn't nail it. I admit it. So they LA nailed me for not doing it perfectly,
That's unbelievable. Over the years, have you kept an eye on reviews and stuff? Is that something, because these days, obviously, with social media and what have you, new artists, they can't escape it. Everyone's got an opinion, and they can get to artists quite easily through social media. Back when you were coming up, really it had to be these written publications and newspapers. So you could have kind of avoided it if you wanted, I suppose. Right. But was it important for you to keep an eye on what people were saying about your music and your performances?
Not so much, but I think every time, especially in the 80s when I was with Warner Brothers, did my first 4 albums for them, it was important to see the review when the new album came out. Yeah. Not as much for the live shows. But yeah, you're always excited to see what the critics say about a new album. But after it's finished,
nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do then. Yeah.
You also worked on John Lennon's final studio album in 1975. What was that experience like?
I didn't end up on the album.
Really?
Tell you the story. Phil Spector, the producer, had booked a lot of us musicians, we musicians, for 7 o'clock every night that week, 5 nights. And so I went to the session for John on time. Leon Russell, I forget who else was there that night.
Well, Steve Cropper's on the album as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he was there that night. But anyway, what I'm getting at is the 7 o'clock session.
Yeah.
9:30, still no John Lennon and Phil Spector.
Oh, jeez.
We're just sitting around A&M Studios. Leon Russell and I went into another studio, and he sat at the piano, and we just kind of jammed a little bit. So John and Phil finally got there, 10 o'clock or something. And I didn't tell the story for a lot of years, but it was a bad time for John. He was drinking. And so we're going to do a song, and they called Boney Maroney. Well, I played Boney Maroney when I was 12 years old. And so I'm in my cubby right here, and John's right here, and he had been drinking. So he's calling the chord changes. It's only 3. And he's going, A, I got a gal named Boney Maroney. D, I said, I got it. It was a drag. It was not professional and not what. So we finished that night's session. I drove Leon Russell back to his hotel, and I said, man, that was a drag, darn it. And with his Oklahoma accent, Leon said, you kidding? I'm back to Tulsa in the morning. I got home and called Phil Spector's office and just left a message at midnight. Said, sorry, I can't make it the rest of the week. So I canceled. That wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. It could have been so cool. But one of those things, you know. Leon just went back to Oklahoma.
It was the right decision though, yeah?
For me, it was the right decision. Yeah, that wasn't fun.
And did you never meet Lennon again?
No. No. I'm an admirer,
yeah,
but that was a bad time.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
You're now partnering with Sire, and you've got these incredible instruments. Talk us through the partnership with these guys and you know, how this came to be. Yeah,
I was in Japan maybe almost 6 years ago now for the Sire thing. I've been back many times since. And the owner, Kyle, and a couple of his associates came backstage and had already talked to my manager, Robert Williams, and said they would like to do a guitar line with me, that Marcus Miller, they've been doing his bass for Sire for over 5 years. And I knew that if Marcus was involved, there had to be something quality about it. He wouldn't be doing it. So I said, sure, I'm interested. Let's talk. Well, they flew from Indonesia later and brought 5 Sire prototypes to my manager's house so I could check them out.
Yeah.
The quality of these dang instruments, the craftsmanship and everything, was unbelievable for the price point.
Yeah.
At the time, this was 6 years ago, I think the average price was $600.
Unbelievable.
May have gone up a little over time.
Yeah.
But that was it. The quality for the price point. I thought, how many guys now can get a quality guitar?
That's it.
And not have to spend a fortune.
And over the years, you must have been approached by many companies
Yeah.
to do different signature guitars, turned them down. So it really speaks to how great the quality is on these instruments. And of course, it's not just some of the typical shapes that you would expect. You've got many varied Sire instruments, haven't you? So did that get the creative juices flowing? You kind of thought, actually, let's try a few different shapes here and see what's going to work for me?
I have to give credit to Sire for that. It's my understanding they did the same thing with the Marcus Miller bass. Started with a few models.
Yeah.
And as it grew, they incorporated what other people might want. And they've done that with my line. We have over 20 guitars in the line now. All I ask is that they keep the quality up.
Sure.
And the price point appropriate. Yeah, I don't care if they make a Jaguar or a Jazzmaster or as long as those 2 elements are there, I'm proud to have my name on it, and they've done it.
We've got to talk a little bit about Robben Ford, your great friend who's here with us as well at Guitar Dreams. Now, you guys have shared the stage many times over the years and played many fantastic solos together. Just talk us through, for you, what is the most special thing about Robben's playing?
Wow, when I met Robben, it was probably 1975. Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark album that I'd played on, they were going to go on the road. And Joe Sample and I were still busy in the studios and with the Crusaders, so we couldn't go on the road. So Tom Scott called this kid from Northern California, Robben Ford. And Robben told me, I didn't remember this, but he told me that they called and had me come to the rehearsal so I could show him what I had used with pedal and a volume pedal. So I hadn't heard him play yet. I just met this kid.
Yeah.
Robben's 5 years younger than me, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was after that that I heard him at a supper club called Dante's in North Hollywood. And like the majority of us that hear Robben the first time, you go, holy shit, this kid can play. There was a fire and a looseness with Robben, an innocence. And I responded immediately. I said, I got to get some of that. And so I introduced myself again, and we became friends. He came to my house. We sat with guitars. And some of what Robben was doing at that time, I absorbed.
Wow.
It came into my playing for sure. I loved it.
Of course.
He was so bluesy, but he was so jazzy and out if he wanted. As you know, he's just a rare breed. And yeah, some of Robben definitely went into my playing that when I heard him and we became friends.
Final thing before I let you go, obviously such a complete player, one of the greatest players of all time. If you were starting it all over again, would you do anything different in terms of your journey with the guitar?
No. I wouldn't. My mother passed away last year at 101 years old. And when I spoke at her funeral, all I had to say was, she was the perfect mom for me. She drove me to all those gigs as a kid, sat while her little child was on stage doing his thing, drove home, did the same thing the next night. Without that kind of support, I would not have gained the experience I did as such a young player. I wouldn't change anything. Yeah, it was perfect for me.
Perfect. Larry, such a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Cool.